Welcome back. We're here on Facebook Live with another question and answer session with our very own Swamiji. And so the question and answer sessions were born out of a way to reach out to all the people out there in Radio Land and Facebook Land so that we could all keep this feeling of community going even while we can't be together. And if you're still hungry for more after all of this, there is more on-demand and streaming programming available at www.satsanglive.com.au. And so we hope to see you there as well. Welcome, Swamiji.
Hello, nourish.
So nice to be here with you.
Nice to see you again.
So
and hello to everyone.
Last night in study group, we were chatting a lot about Gurdjieff's schema of the 7 different men. And it had so much to do with the questions that I wanted to ask you today. Questions that we've had people write in and some of my own. But one of Swami Muktananda's favorite Shiva Sutras talked about Guru Upaya, which means the Guru is the means. And at the heart of our lineage, it's a Guru tradition. And so is the Guru a means to an end? And what function does the Guru serve?
Yeah, that's a big question. Just addressing that's one of the Shiva Sutras, Guru Upaya. As probably well known to some of the audience, Shaivism talks about upayas or methods, and usually they talk about 3 methods. Then there's a 4th, and this is a 5th. A method of yoga, a way of connecting with the self. And so you have a physical method, an emotional or volitional method, and a mental method. And then you have the method of the Guru. And the Guru is a method. You could call that the 4th upaya, the methodless method. It's simply to hang around in the sphere of the Guru. And the Guru becomes the means of transformation. Just be entering into relationship. I think the idea is something like this. Spirituality could be boiled down to relationship. This whole universe is a web of relationship. And actually, if it's one, then everything is related to everything and is one with everything. But we're usually out of relationship. We have enemies, we have difficulties, we have preferences, we have fears. So we're out of that relationship. So the idea is that if you relate to a being whose relationship with the whole is perfect, then that insinuates you into a similar kind of, expands your capacity to relate to the whole. So a true Guru would be one whose connection with the universe is perfect and nurturing. And so by relating to him, you relate to the whole in some way and expands who you are. So that's Guru Upaya.
Wonderful.
Well, you were talking about Gurdjieff's 7 men. Want me to?
Yeah, I think Shaivism loves lists, and it seems like Gurdjieff also loved a list. So, and these lists of upayas versus the 7 different men seem very much in line with one another.
I was before I heard about yoga, I was starting to awaken in New York, and the first spiritual teacher that I got interested in was Gurdjieff. A friend of mine introduced me. And I started reading. I was fascinated by a lot of his ideas. To this day, I think he's articulated some of the spiritual ideas in a very useful way for seekers. One of them is his list of 7 men, which is not politically correct now. 7 men or women, we'll say. 7 persons. And he said that the first 3, we'll call them 3 men, were all at the same level. This is pre-spirituality. And they would be solids, vitals, and peculiars, which means intellectual type, emotional type, and physical or action type. Everybody's born one of these 3 men. So everyone has an inclination to be more intellectual, more emotional, or more vital, more into action. And then we live our life from that disposition. And then at some point we discover the spiritual path. It can be after many lifetimes, or, it's hard to know how that happens, but everyone has a story to tell who's discovered the spiritual path. And then as we start to practice, we move to man number 4, who is the spiritual seeker. And these qualities start to get balanced. Often an intellectual type is out of balance. His emotions or his doing is out of balance. Or an extreme emotional type, what we call a peculiar, is out of balance maybe with the intellect and with the doing. Adida used to say that a peculiar is hysterical 3 times before breakfast. So we have to balance our intellect, our doing, and our feeling. The perfect person is a balance of all these things. There's not going to be one way over on one side. I mean, a doer will be just mindlessly doing with no rhyme or reason to it. And an emotional person will be having fits and tantrums all the time. An intellectual will be just analyzing dryly everything without feeling anything. So we start to balance as we do practice. We come into the realm of practice. And then we go all the way up to man number 7, who is the spiritual master. We're talking about Jesus and Buddha. In our tradition, my guru was man number 7, and his guru, Bhagwan Nityananda, was man number 7. And so just being around them, a transmission takes place. We call it Shaktipat, but every tradition is aware of the transmission that comes. Just as water flows downhill, so energy flows, if you're open to it, from man number 7 down. And so I was saying last night that the Guru Rupaya would be the method of just hanging out, being in the ambiance of man number 7. And when you think about it, all spirituality is that. If you're a Christian, for example, Jesus is the man number 7 that you're hanging out with. If you're a Buddhist, Buddha is the man number 7. But now that's filtered down through many other minds and through much time. So who is the real Jesus? It's hard to know what his teachings were and what weren't put in there by other people and so on. So if you really want to get close to man number 7, a living guru becomes highly desirable. However, if you have a living guru, also the heat gets turned up. So, when I went to India, I was desperate for that. That's what I wanted. I wanted to find a living guru because I felt in my bones that was the most transformative way. It might be a little uncomfortable. I didn't know that at the time, but it's the quickest and the most uplifting way.
It seems like satsang is a vital practice when you're coming in contact with these people, like person number 7. So, but you also had the great good fortune to come in contact with a lot of kind of spiritual heavy hitters from India at the time when you were there. How did you know that you had finally found your guru?
Well, I was flying blind. I did, and I was fascinated, and I did get very lucky. I met some great beings, but I give as an example is Nimkroli Baba, who I respect as a realizer of the highest quality. And I met him, and I spent some time with him, and I was enchanted by him. He was full of love. But my thought was, how does this work? He doesn't offer a yoga. Basically, you sat there and you drank tea occasionally and you chant a little bit. But I didn't understand this idea of just Guru Rupaya and that a transmission is happening. So I thought, I need to learn the techniques of yoga. How do you do that? What method do you use? All the asanas and pranayama and everything about it, the glorious feel. And that's my approach. I was an academic,
right?
Westerner. So here's this little old man in a blanket who seems very loving. But what does that have to do with me? But, so I moved. But, that's one side of it. But the other side is, I think my destiny was to find Baba, who was all of that. Plus, he gave you a very concrete path, too.
Yeah, there's so many practices to engage with in this lineage.
Yeah. And so I wouldn't say I made a mistake. I was just not ready at that point.
Yeah, transmission is something that's very subtle. And if you can't pick up on it, if someone is a seeker, how do they know that they finally met their guru?
I didn't know. I mean, I met Baba in Delhi, and I immediately admired him. I thought, wow, this guy is powerful and loving and funny. All these things. He was just a terrific guy. But the light didn't go off, said, this is your guru. And he didn't say, oh, my son, come, I've been waiting for you.
Right.
But at some point, the penny dropped. In fact, it was important to me to see his ashram, because the ashram was so on purpose. It was such a laboratory of change, transformation, and it reflected him. And then I tell in my book that I think I really understood it when in a conversation with Ramdas, he said, this place is fierce. It's such discipline, so fierce. If you spend a few months here, you'll be transformed. He was telling me. He was in Ganeshpuri.
Wow.
And I've been there a few months, and I thought, wow, I'm never going to leave. That was my thought. That's curious. I'm never going to leave. Why would I leave? And it's that moment I say, oh, he must be my guru.
Wow.
Yeah.
If you haven't come into contact with someone who's a living guru, or you haven't really placed yourself at the feet of wisdom in that way, lots of times people feel a connection with great beings who aren't on the planet anymore, people who have passed away. Does your connection to man number 7 have to be with a living teacher?
Well, look, if you read the Bhagavad Gita, where do you think that comes from? Do you think it was generated by a computer? But man number 7 wrote that.
Right.
If you read any text, come into any tradition, even the New Age, the New Age, which is this kind of potpourri of odds and ends, sort of vaguely Eastern, and reincarnation, and I don't know, crystals. That's the influence of man number 7, filtered through many things.
Right.
Through a crystal glass darkly. But so we have the influence of man number 7 in all of the religious practices and so on. And so if you want that, it's best to go with what you understand and do the practice you understand. And at some point, it will happen for you. That if you want more, you'll know, I want more. And then you'll study with someone, and you'll go, and then you'll reach a point in that study where you say, I want more than this. Or you just accidentally come into touch with the guru. There are many who got Shaktipat without knowing anything about it, and weren't so happy with it. I often tell the story about a woman who used to come to me in Los Angeles and say that she went to a program with Baba, and she heard about Baba through a friend. The friend said, come with me to this program. So she went, and she got Shaktipat at this program. And she came and said, can you take it away from me? I said, I don't want this. Wasn't interested. And I would start laughing, and I had a very hard time being sympathetic with her. I said, people would give anything to have this. So you never know when that might happen. Do your practice, work with what you understand, and the soul will aspire, and the aspiration of the soul will be met.
So there is this guru that we come into physical contact with that we have to learn how to relate to, and surrender to, but there's also this idea that there is like a primordial wisdom or energy that's behind everything that we call Guru Tattva.
Yeah.
And Ram Dass famously has this quote that says, when you know how to listen, everyone is the guru.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about relating to a personal guru versus Guru Tattva? And like, what's the place of Guru Tattva?
Well, if you can, the guru is everywhere. The guru speaks through all things. Everything is consciousness. Everything is divine. But to attune yourself to that is not easy, and it doesn't just happen because it sounds like a good idea. One way it can happen is through a relationship with a living guru, who then awakens the inner guru. Look, everything is possible in this universe. Everything is possible. To me, finding a living guru was the greatest thing that ever happened to me. Tremendous value spiritually and in every possible way. If that doesn't happen for you, it doesn't mean you can't get realized or something. There's always a possibility. There's always the Ramana Maharshi and people like that. But it seems like an easy path. Why would you reject an easier path? I mean, some people in our culture is terrified of gurus. But do we avoid the guru or reject the guru for spiritual reasons or for egoic reasons? Is our ego getting in the way? You have to ask that. So I'd say that in my life, I'm very grateful that I had the good fortune of being led to Baba's feet. And I recommend the path of the guru. But if that's not, come under the influence of man number 7 at whatever level is comfortable for you. If you want to be a Christian, go ahead. But get close to Jesus, get close to the life that he wanted people to lead, become a disciple.
Right. There's this idea in Western culture that you being the self has something to do with you being comfortable and self-directed. And that doesn't really exist in the Indian or Eastern spirituality world. So as we journeyed on this method of the guru, what happens to our ideas, our personhood, our likes, our dislikes, like as we come into close proximity with the guru?
Well, let's see how we can say that. Your personhood, your likes, your dislikes, your tastes, your preferences, your ideas and your values are all fine, except when they turn out that they're blocking you from the experience of the divine. So whatever is a block to the divine has to go. 100%. If it's a block, it has to go. But you don't know in advance what's a block and what's not a block. And sometimes something you really treasure and you think, well, I have this political point of view and it's right. And sometimes you have to surrender that kind of thing. And so I would be lying if I didn't say that a relationship with a true guru doesn't require surrender. Of course it does. But you never know how that works. And it's not as though you become a bland lump of protoplasm. You're still very much you. One of the things I admired about Baba is he was such an individual. He was so colorful. He was humorous. He was funny. He was strong. He was fiery. He was so many things. He wasn't bland or phony in any way.
Right.
And the same would be true of anybody. It would just become unstuck, free. And he was free is what he was. So you don't have to worry about your personhood. It'll be there, but it won't be harmful personhood.
Right. Our tradition is one of siddhas, perfected beings, and sometimes when we finally meet a siddha or we come in contact with a guru, it challenges all of our ideas about what being spiritual looks like, tastes like, smells like. Are all siddhas by proxy gurus, and are siddhas saints?
Are all Siddhas what?
Saints. Are they gurus? Are they saints? Is being a Siddha its own weird grab bag?
Oh my. It's all these are all just words. If we're talking about man number 7, they're basically, a man number 7 is one who is porous to consciousness. The light of God shines through him. And so he doesn't get in his own way of being in touch with the whole, and in touch with love and energy and so on. And you can call such a being a saint or a siddha or whatever. Doesn't matter that much. Baba had very special love for the word siddha. So I have to respect it. It means one who's achieved, one who's attained. And so.
And if you've finally met your guru and your life circumstance isn't such where you can be close with them all the time, how can you continue to nourish that relationship even when you're not in close physical proximity?
That's a good question, because Baba sent me away. And so I realized he sent me with a lot of tools. For one thing, he sent me. So therefore where I was because of his word. So I felt that was very special, and that created a thread of relationship. But also you have his teachings, you have his mantra. When traditionally in India, you serve the guru for X number of years, and then he gives you a mantra. Once you have the mantra, you can run off. You don't run off, but then you have him. You've got the guru in that form. And so you can go to your hometown, your village, and you repeat the mantra. And as you repeat the mantra, you know that you have the guru within you. It was given by him. It contains his energy. And so that's a means of relationship. And it has to be so that it can't just be physical proximity. But for a while, physical proximity is really, really valuable. And when I was sent away, I was sort of the first in my class, my graduating class, the Ganeshpuri class, that was sent away, and all my friends were thinking, "Oh my God, he's fallen. Baba's kicked him out." I could feel that. That because their value was to stay with Baba.
Right.
And I understood that because I had that same value. But he did that, so I had to go. And then I realized that it did work, that the relationship transcended time and space.
Wow. That's beautiful.
Eventually they got used to it.
A lot of the scriptures, they talk about winning the grace of the guru through surrender. And surrender, when we first encounter this word, it sounds like you're at the end of a losing streak. So it's like, if I am to surrender, what happens to my autonomy? What happens to my discernment? Do I give up is surrender in this tradition something that you come to on a winning streak or a losing streak?
I think it's not productive to think like that.
Right.
It's too big. It's just being concrete particulars. And so at every moment you have to make the movement that opens you to the Shakti, to the higher truth. And so sometimes you have to let something go. And that's surrender. So surrender is to allow the divinity to come to you. That's all. It's not, don't worry about whether you're going to be there. I just told you that you'll be there. You'll be the charming person you are, only more so. So it's just moment to moment. It's really to surrender your block, the obstacle, to that feeling of oneness.
Yeah, it seems like until we start sadhana, we usually have to be pushed or backed into surrendering. It's like the Bhagavad Gita has to start on a war field. You know what I mean? It couldn't have happened any other way.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know. Baba had certain plans for me I had no idea about.
Yeah.
And then he sort of blindsided me with it. And I had no choice but to surrender. He says, "How you going?" And I said to him, "I'm not so happy." And he said, And I had no choice but to, and it was a great thing for me. You can read that in my book. I will not go into details.
if you had to recommend one method, what's the surefire way to obtain the grace of a guru?
Well, Baba said again and again that the disciple's grace is more important than the guru's grace. And I used to think, what the heck is that about? And I realize keenly now that it's the openness of the disciple that creates the flow. The guru can be this radiant being full of Shakti with everything available, but if the person is closed to it, it won't happen. But if a person approaches it with openness and with love, in the right way, the flow has to happen. So the best way is to be open. You'll get as much as you're open to. And that's why this approach of this paranoid approach where I may be getting ripped off or I may be, what'll happen to me, these get in the way. So it's better to open to it. And if it starts to go wrong, you'll know.
Well, Swamiji, I think this is all the questions that we have so far.
Okay.
If there are any questions that you'd like for us to answer next time, you can always type them into the comment box or send us a message on the Mount Eliza, the ashram Facebook page. And if you're enjoying these little chats we're having with Swamiji, I highly recommend the Tuesday night study group. It's the highlight of my week. And that's available at www.satsanglive.com.au. Swamiji, it's been such a pleasure. Thank you.
It's always, I love talking about this topic. As you can tell, I'm very positive about the guru. And there's a whole topic we could talk about when something happens or something goes off with the guru and what to do and so on. Maybe next time we could discuss that.
Yeah, I'd love to.
All right. Thank you. That'd be good. Very good discussion. Satguru Nath Maharaj Ki Jai.